What if one small moment could uncover everything you've been trying to hide? It was almost midnight in a quiet corner of Maplewood, the kind of small American town where everyone knows each other's business, except maybe their own hearts. The streets outside were silent, wet from evening rain, and the only light in the living room came from a half-burnt candle flickering beside an empty mug of cocoa. Ethan sat on the couch, his laptop still open, pretending to work but mostly staring at the screen like it could tell him what went wrong. Claire entered the room softly, wearing that oversized gray sweater he always loved. She carried a folded blanket in her arms. It was something she'd done every night for years, a small act of care that had somehow survived every argument, every disappointment, every quiet dinner. "You're still awake," she said with a faint smile, her voice carrying that warmth that made the cold room feel alive. Ethan smiled back. "Couldn't sleep. Too many reports. Or too many thoughts," she teased gently, setting the blanket on the couch. He chuckled, though it sounded tired. "Maybe both." She sat beside him, the faint smell of her vanilla shampoo brushing against his shoulder. For a few moments they didn't speak, just the soft hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the rain tapping faintly on the window, and the quiet kind of comfort that lives between two people who've shared too many years to need constant words. When she leaned forward to tuck the blanket around him, her hand brushed against his phone lying on the cushion. It wasn't intentional, just one of those tiny accidents that happen when life decides to change everything in a heartbeat. The phone lit up for half a second, the glow cutting through the dark, and that's when she saw it. A message. Just one line. "I miss you too, Ethan." Her fingers froze midair. Her breath caught. For a second, she thought maybe she'd misread it. Maybe it was from his sister or an old friend. But no, there was a small heart emoji right after the words, and that changed everything. Ethan noticed immediately. His pulse spiked. "Claire, wait." But she had already stepped back, eyes locked on the screen, the way people stare at the moment their world quietly collapses. "Who's that?" she asked, her voice low, too steady to be calm. He reached for the phone, but she pulled her hand away. "Don't," she whispered. "Claire, it's not what you think." "Then what is it?" she asked, looking right at him now. Her face was pale, her eyes shining under the candlelight. "Tell me I didn't just see what I think I saw." He hesitated, and that pause was louder than any confession. The candle flickered again. The house felt too small. The clock on the wall ticked louder, like it was counting down to something inevitable. "Ethan," she said, her voice trembling now. "Is there someone else?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He couldn't even lie, because part of him knew silence would hurt less than the truth. His gaze dropped to the floor, and that alone was enough. Claire laughed softly, the kind of laugh that breaks in the middle, more like a sob disguised as strength. "You know, I never thought I'd be that woman. The one who finds out by accident." "Claire," he tried again. But she turned away, crossing her arms like she was trying to hold herself together. "Don't," she said sharply. "Please, just don't say anything right now." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The sound of rain outside grew heavier, filling the silence between them. He finally whispered, "It's not what you think." She looked back at him, her eyes glistening with disbelief. "Then make me believe it," Ethan sighed. "I can't explain it right now." Her voice broke. "Then don't expect me to stay." She turned, heading for the stairs. Her steps were quiet but heavy, like each one carried the weight of something breaking. At the top, she paused, gripping the railing for a moment as if she might collapse. Then whispered, barely audible, "You promised me forever." And then she disappeared into the dark hallway, leaving Ethan alone with the glow of his phone and the message that ruined everything. The clock struck midnight. The candle finally died. He sat there staring at the screen, not because of the message itself, but because of the name that sent it. Lily. A name he hadn't said out loud in years. Would you still love someone if the truth wasn't what it looked like? Upstairs, Claire sat on the edge of the bed, her hands shaking as she stared at her reflection in the mirror. She looked like a ghost of herself, hair messy, eyes red, lips trembling. The woman in the mirror didn't look like the one who used to laugh with Ethan over burnt pancakes or fall asleep on his shoulder during old movies. This woman looked tired, broken. She picked up her phone, scrolling through their old photos, vacations, anniversaries, random selfies. There was a time they couldn't go a day without telling each other everything. Now, she realized, he'd been keeping something from her. Downstairs, Ethan sat frozen on the couch, the phone still glowing in his hand. He wanted to delete the message, but he didn't. He couldn't. Because that would mean pretending it didn't happen, and that wasn't fair. He typed a reply instead. "Please stop texting. I told you this isn't okay." Then after a long pause, he deleted it before sending. Because a part of him knew Claire had already seen enough. The truth was complicated. And painful. But tonight wasn't the night to explain it. Can love survive when trust breaks in silence? Claire didn't sleep that night. She lay awake, listening to the creaks of the house, the wind brushing against the window, and Ethan pacing downstairs. Every sound felt louder than usual, like her senses were on fire. She thought about confronting him again, demanding answers. But something inside her whispered that she might not be ready for them, because sometimes knowing the truth hurts more than suspecting it. When she finally went downstairs just before dawn, Ethan was still awake. His eyes were red, his hair messy, and he looked like a man who'd aged years in one night. He stood up quickly when he saw her. "Claire," she raised a hand. "Don't. Not right now." He nodded silently, stepping back. The light from the window began to spill into the room, pale, uncertain, like both of them. She looked at him one last time and said quietly, "I just need space. I can't breathe here right now." And she left, not forever, but long enough for both of them to wonder if forever still meant anything. Sometimes, silence says what words can't. That evening, the house was empty. The clock ticked endlessly, the walls echoing with the quiet absence of her voice. Ethan sat at the same couch, staring again at the phone. He finally unlocked it and opened the message thread. There were more messages from Lily. Most were short. "Thank you for helping. I couldn't have done it without you. You were always kind to me, Ethan." And then the last one, the one Claire saw. "I miss you too," he hadn't replied. Not once, not a word, but none of that mattered now. He wanted to call Claire, to explain everything, how Lily wasn't what she thought, how the story behind that message wasn't betrayal, but something else entirely. But every time he picked up the phone, his heart stopped, his throat closed. Because how do you explain a truth that sounds like a lie? Outside, the rain began again, soft, rhythmic, like a memory. Ethan leaned back, closing his eyes, and whispered to the empty room. "She's going to hate me for something I didn't even do." But the house didn't answer. Only the rain did, and somewhere, miles away, Claire sat in her car by the river, gripping the steering wheel as tears rolled down her cheeks. She didn't know what hurt more, the possibility that he'd betrayed her, or the tiny, stubborn hope inside her that maybe, just maybe, he hadn't. She looked at her phone. No new messages, just silence, and yet deep down she felt something, that this wasn't the end, that there was still a truth waiting beneath the surface. She started the car, the headlights cutting through the rain, and drove into the night. She didn't know where she was going, maybe to find answers, maybe just to run from them. But one thing was certain. The moment she saw that message, everything changed, and what she didn't know yet was that the truth hiding behind those words would change her heart in ways she never expected, because the person she thought had broken her trust was the one silently breaking for her. Would you still love someone if their lie was meant to protect you? The morning sun crept through the blinds, but the warmth that used to fill their home was gone. Claire sat at the kitchen table, a half-empty cup of coffee beside her, untouched and cold. She hadn't slept. Every sound, the ticking clock, the distant hum of traffic, felt louder than usual, like the whole world was reminding her that something was broken. Down the hall, Ethan moved quietly, as if afraid to disturb the silence. When he entered the kitchen, he hesitated by the doorway. She didn't look up. He wanted to say something, anything that could undo the last 12 hours, but there are some cracks that words can't fill. Finally, Claire spoke, her voice calm but sharp. "I saw the message. So, are you going to tell me the truth now?" Ethan took a deep breath, his eyes tired. "It's not what you think, Claire." Her lips trembled. "Then please, help me think differently." He sat down across from her, rubbing his hands together like he was trying to gather courage. "It's about Lily." Her heart clenched. The name hit her like ice. "Lily?" she whispered. "Your ex?" He nodded slowly. "She reached out a month ago. She's sick, Claire. Cancer. Stage 3. For a moment, the air left her lungs. She blinked, unsure if she'd heard him right. "What?" "She sent that message after I helped her get into a clinical program," he explained. "She doesn't have family nearby. She just needed someone to talk to." Claire leaned back, eyes glassy, her mind spinning. "You're telling me that message, 'I miss you too,' was from a woman dying of cancer?" "Yes," he said quietly. "And I didn't reply. I swear I didn't." She studied his face, searching for the slightest hint of deception. But what she saw was exhaustion, guilt, and something else. Fear. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because I knew what it would look like," he said. "You would have thought I was hiding feelings for her. I didn't want to hurt you." Her jaw tightened. "But you hurt me anyway." Ethan looked down, ashamed. "I know." For a long time, neither of them spoke. The coffee grew colder. The silence stretched like a wall between them. Then, softly, Claire said, "You should have trusted me, Ethan. I could have understood." He met her gaze, his eyes full of regret. "I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust that I could explain it right without ruining everything." There it was. The truth that wasn't betrayal, but still felt like one. She stood up, unable to stay still. "I need some air." He didn't stop her. He just watched her walk away, the sound of her footsteps fading into the distance. Sometimes the truth doesn't fix things. It just changes what breaks. The day dragged slowly. Claire walked through town aimlessly, trying to make sense of everything. She passed the bakery where they used to go on Sundays, the park where they'd had their first fight and first kiss. Every corner held a memory that felt heavier now. She sat on a bench, scrolling through her phone. Old messages from Ethan, full of love, promises, laughter. It all felt like another lifetime. Her phone buzzed suddenly. A new message appeared from an unknown number. "You deserve to know everything about Ethan. Meet me tonight. 8 p.m., Willow Cafe." Claire froze. Her fingers went cold. The name wasn't there, but somehow she felt it. Whoever sent it knew something. Her heart pounded. Was this real? Was someone trying to mess with her? Or was there another layer to Ethan's secret? For the rest of the day, she couldn't focus on anything else. The message played over and over in her mind. You deserve to know everything. By evening, she found herself standing outside Willow Cafe, the sky painted orange by the setting sun. She almost turned around twice, but curiosity has a strange pull, especially when it's tied to love. Inside, the cafe smelled of coffee and rain. A woman sat alone by the window, wrapped in a light scarf, her hands trembling slightly as she stirred her tea. She looked up, her eyes soft and weary. "Claire?" the woman asked gently. Claire hesitated. "Yes," the woman smiled faintly. "I'm Lily." For a moment, Claire couldn't speak. She just stood there, staring at the face of the woman who had almost destroyed her peace. But there was no malice in Lily's eyes, only pain. "Please," Lily said, motioning to the seat across from her. "Sit down. Would you listen to a stranger if it meant saving the person you love?" Claire sat slowly, heart pounding. Lily's hands trembled as she held her cup. Her skin was pale, her eyes tired but kind. "I know you probably hate me," Lily began softly. "And you have every reason to. But I didn't call you to make things worse." Claire crossed her arms, cautious. "Then why am I here?" "Because I wanted you to know the truth," Lily said, voice shaking. Ethan didn't do anything wrong. He's been helping me, paying for part of my treatment, driving me to appointments, checking on me when no one else would. Claire frowned. Helping you? Why? Because I asked him to, Lily said simply. And he said yes, even though he knew you might misunderstand. He told me not to tell you, because he didn't want you to think he was keeping secrets, but I couldn't live with you hating him for something that isn't his fault. Claire's throat tightened. The woman sitting across from her didn't sound like someone scheming or manipulating. She sounded sincere. Why come to me now? Claire asked, still cautious. Lily smiled sadly. Because I don't have much time left. The doctors say I might not see Christmas, and before I go, I wanted to make sure he doesn't lose you because of me. Claire's breath caught. Her chest ached. The cafe's soft background music suddenly felt unbearably loud. Lily reached across the table, placing a thin, trembling hand over Claire's. He loves you. He talks about you every time he visits. You're his world, Claire. Don't let one message destroy that. Tears welled up in Claire's eyes. You're telling me, all this time, he was helping you and hiding it to protect me? Yes, Lily whispered. He didn't want pity or attention. He just wanted to do the right thing quietly. Claire looked away, blinking fast. I thought he'd lied to me. I thought I'd lost him. Lily smiled faintly. You didn't lose him. You almost lost the chance to see how deeply he cares. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Rain began to tap lightly against the window again, as if the world was listening in silence. Claire finally said softly, You should have told me sooner. Lily shook her head. It wasn't my place, but I couldn't let you keep hurting. She looked out the window, her voice trembling now. Promise me one thing, Claire. Don't tell Ethan you met me. He doesn't know how bad it's gotten. Let him think I'm getting better. That's how he needs to remember me. Claire's throat tightened. You're asking me to lie to him now? Lily smiled weakly. Sometimes love means keeping a secret, too. The words hit hard, like a mirror of her own pain. The hardest truth is the one you can't share. When Claire left the cafe, the rain had stopped. The air smelled of wet earth and coffee. She stood outside for a moment, her heart heavy but strangely calm. Everything she thought she knew had changed. Ethan wasn't the man who betrayed her. He was the man who carried someone else's pain quietly, just to protect her from it. Driving home, she replayed the entire conversation. Lily's soft voice, her fragile smile, her request to keep it secret. By the time she reached home, the lights were still on. Ethan sat on the couch, the same spot where everything had begun. He looked up as she entered, his eyes hopeful, scared, waiting for judgment. Claire, he started. I know you don't believe me, but... She interrupted gently. You don't have to explain anymore. He frowned, confused. What do you mean? She smiled softly, walking closer. I understand now, and I'm sorry I didn't trust you. He stood, relief flooding his face. So, we're okay? She nodded slowly. We will be. He smiled faintly, his eyes glistening. I don't deserve you. Maybe not, she whispered, but you have me. They stood in silence for a long time, the distance between them closing with quiet forgiveness. But as he pulled her into an embrace, Claire's eyes drifted toward his phone on the table, the same phone that had started everything. And she thought about Lily's words. Don't tell him. Let him think I'm getting better. She wanted to tell him everything. She wanted to share what she'd learned, to lift the weight of that secret. But she couldn't, not without breaking something sacred. As Ethan kissed her forehead and whispered, Thank you for believing me. She smiled through tears, knowing that for the first time, he was the one living in a lie he didn't even know about. And deep inside, she felt the ache of a truth she couldn't speak, because sometimes love doesn't survive on honesty. It survives on mercy. What if the truth you finally find is the one you wish you never knew? The night air was thick with rain and silence. Claire sat in her car for several minutes outside the cafe, watching the drops streak down the windshield. The echo of Lily's voice still lingered in her mind, soft, calm, heartbreakingly gentle. She had come looking for answers and found something she didn't know how to carry. Lily's words had changed everything. Ethan wasn't a liar. He wasn't cheating. He was helping someone who had once loved him, someone who was quietly dying. And now, Claire held that secret, heavy and painful, something that didn't belong to her, but had already reshaped her heart. When she finally drove home, the road shimmered with puddles. Streetlights blurred through her tears. She parked quietly in the driveway, turned off the engine, and just sat there, staring at the dark window of their home. She could see Ethan's silhouette through the curtains, waiting, maybe pacing, maybe rehearsing what to say next. She wiped her eyes, took a deep breath, and whispered to herself, "You can't break him with the truth." Then she opened the door and stepped into the storm of her own silence. Sometimes the hardest part of love is pretending you don't know. When Claire entered, Ethan looked up immediately. His face was tired, but his eyes softened when he saw her. "You came back," he said quietly, almost like he didn't believe it himself. She nodded. "I needed some time to think." He hesitated, searching her expression. "And did you?" "I did," she said softly. "And I realized maybe I overreacted. Maybe. I forgot who you really are." Ethan exhaled, a shaky breath that carried hours of tension. "Claire, I never meant to hurt you." "I know," she said, and it wasn't a lie. He smiled faintly, almost relieved, and stepped closer. "Can I hug you?" She didn't answer, just closed the distance between them. His arms wrapped around her like they always had, warm and familiar, but she felt a strange distance between their hearts, because now she held something he didn't. As he rested his chin on her shoulder, she whispered in her mind, "She's dying. Ethan, the woman you're helping is dying," but out loud. She only said, "It's okay now." He pulled back, smiling for the first time in days. "I thought I lost you." Claire forced a smile. "You almost did." That night they talked for hours, about nothing and everything. About old memories, about things they missed. It was almost normal. Almost. But deep down, Claire knew that something had changed forever. Because while Ethan had told her one truth, Lily had given her another. And now, both truths lived inside her, pulling in opposite directions. Every secret has a heartbeat, and it gets louder the longer you hide it. The following week, life tried to return to normal. Ethan went back to work. Claire cleaned the house, cooked dinners, and smiled when neighbors asked if everything was fine. But inside, her thoughts wouldn't stop. She checked her phone every few hours, half expecting another message from Lily, an update, a goodbye, anything. But nothing came, just silence. One afternoon, as Claire was watering the small garden outside, she saw Ethan's car pull into the driveway earlier than usual. He stepped out holding a brown paper bag. "I brought lunch," he said cheerfully. "Thought I'd surprise you." She smiled, but her stomach twisted. Surprises had started to feel dangerous. They ate together on the porch. The sun was warm, the breeze soft. For a few minutes, it almost felt like peace. Until Ethan said casually, "By the way, I might visit Lily again next week. She called to thank me for the last transfer." Claire froze mid-bite. "She called you?" He nodded. "Yeah, just for a minute. She sounded better, I think." Her pulse quickened. She sounded better. The words echoed painfully, because Claire knew that wasn't true. She forced a small smile. "That's nice of you." "Yeah," he said, glancing away. "I just hope she's really doing okay this time." She wanted to tell him. She wanted to say, "She's not okay. She's dying." But Lily's trembling voice replayed in her head. "Don't tell him. Let him think I'm getting better." So Claire swallowed her words and nodded. "I'm sure she will be." Ethan smiled, relief softening his face. "You don't mind, do you? Me visiting her?" Claire shook her head slowly. "No, I think she needs you." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "So do you." Her throat tightened. She squeezed his hand gently, hiding the storm inside her. Secrets grow heavy when love starts to heal. Days turned into weeks. Ethan kept busy with work, and Claire tried to act normal. But the truth kept pressing against her chest, especially at night. She'd wake up sometimes to find Ethan watching her sleep. Quiet, peaceful, unaware. And she'd wonder how he would look at her if he knew she was keeping something from him. One evening, as she folded laundry, Ethan came into the room holding his phone. "Claire," he said, frowning, "did you hear from Lily?" Her heart stopped. "No, why?" "She hasn't answered my messages in a week," he said. "I called the hospital, but they said she's not a patient there anymore." Claire's breath hitched. She turned toward him, trying to keep her voice steady. "Maybe she got transferred somewhere else." He shook his head. "No, they said she finished her treatment. Maybe she went home." "Maybe," Claire whispered. But she knew that wasn't it. She could see it in the way Lily's hands had trembled that night at the cafe. She could feel it in the silence that had followed. Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I just hope she's okay." She didn't even say goodbye. Claire swallowed hard, forcing her voice to sound calm. "Maybe she didn't want you to worry." "Yeah," he said quietly. "Maybe." He walked away, but Claire stayed frozen. Her hands shook so hard she dropped one of his shirts on the floor. She pressed her palm against her chest, trying to calm her heartbeat. Because now, the silence was saying what Lily hadn't. Goodbye. The truth doesn't wait forever. It always finds its way back. The next morning, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address, just her name written in soft, fading ink. Claire stared at it for a long time before opening it. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a photo. The picture showed Lily sitting on a hospital bed, smiling weakly at the camera. Beside her, Ethan, holding a bouquet, his arm around her shoulders. Unaware someone had taken the photo. Her eyes filled with tears before she even read the letter. It began simply, "Dear Claire, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I just wanted to say thank you, for understanding, for forgiving, for loving Ethan enough to let him help me. Please don't let my shadow stay between you two. He deserves happiness and you deserve peace. Tell him I'm okay, even if I'm not. With love, Lily." The paper slipped from her hands, fluttering to the floor. Claire sat there, staring at the letter, her vision blurred. She wanted to cry, but something stopped her. Maybe it was the piece in Lily's handwriting. Maybe it was the understanding that this, all of this, had been an act of love from both sides. When Ethan came home later, he found her sitting by the window, the letter hidden beneath a stack of mail. He smiled gently. "You okay?" She nodded. "Just tired." He walked over and kissed her forehead. "You've been quiet lately," she smiled faintly. "Just thinking," he chuckled. "That's dangerous." But when he walked away, her eyes fell back on the letter. She whispered softly to herself, "You don't know what danger really is." Because now, the secret she had promised to keep had turned into something else. A quiet lie built from love. And every time Ethan smiled, every time he mentioned Lily with fondness or hope, the guilt in Claire's chest grew heavier. She couldn't tell him the truth. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Because if she did, she knew it would break him. That night, as rain returned outside their window, Ethan finally said what she feared most. "Claire," he murmured, his voice soft in the dark, "I think I should visit Lily again this weekend. Maybe bring her flowers. She always loved sunflowers." Claire's heart stopped. In the dim light, he smiled faintly. "Would you come with me?" She turned slowly toward him. "What?" "Yeah," he said gently. "I think it's time you meet her properly. I want her to see how lucky I am." Her lips parted, but no sound came. The world spun for a second. She nodded slowly, whispering, "Okay." And as Ethan drifted to sleep beside her, smiling at the thought of a reunion that would never happen, Claire stared into the dark, eyes wide, heart racing, a single tear rolling down her cheek. Because she knew the place he wanted to visit wasn't a hospital. It was a grave. What do you do when love demands a lie? The morning came soft and golden, as if the world itself had forgotten the storm that lived inside Claire. She stood by the kitchen window, watching Ethan pack a small bouquet of sunflowers into a paper bag. He hummed quietly, a sound she hadn't heard in weeks. He was smiling again, and that smile broke her more than any argument ever could. He thought Lily was alive. He thought today would be a reunion, a chance to say thank you to an old friend and close a gentle chapter of kindness. But Claire knew the truth. Lily was gone, and the letter still sat hidden inside her dresser drawer, folded carefully, like a wound she couldn't throw away. She had promised not to tell him. She had promised to let him remember Lily as living, not dying. But now he wanted to see her. He wanted to go to her, and Claire's heart raced with every passing minute, knowing what he would find. She whispered under her breath, "Please, don't make me tell you." But Ethan looked up, his voice calm and happy. "You ready?" She nodded slowly. "Yeah, I'm ready." And with that, they left. Two people driving toward a truth only one of them could see. Some drives feel endless, not because of distance, but because of fear. The road stretched long and quiet through the countryside. The wind played with the edges of Ethan's hair, and the radio hummed an old love song. He tapped the steering wheel gently, glancing at Claire with that easy, boyish smile she'd fallen for years ago. "Feels good, doesn't it?" he said. "Going out like this again? No work, no stress. Just us." She smiled weakly. "Yeah, just us." He turned his gaze back to the road, talking about the past. Old vacations, funny memories, dreams they hadn't chased yet. And all the while, Claire sat silently, her hands tightening around her knees, her heart pounding faster with every mile. When the highway sign finally appeared, Maple Grove Cemetery, 2 miles. She felt her throat close. He didn't notice. "We'll stop by the florist on the way back, yeah? Get something for your mom, too?" Her voice cracked. "Sure," the words barely left her lips, because now she could see the stone archway ahead, the iron gates, the tall maple trees swaying in the breeze. And she knew that in a few minutes, the truth she'd tried to protect him from would crash over him like a wave. Ethan parked the car by the entrance. He turned off the engine and smiled, holding up the bouquet. "Wish me luck," she swallowed hard. "Ethan. Maybe we shouldn't." But he was already out of the car, stepping into the sunlight, humming that same tune. Claire stayed behind for a second, gripping the edge of the seat, whispering to herself, "Please forgive me, Lily." Then she followed him. Every truth has a moment when it refuses to stay hidden. Ethan walked between the rows of marble stones, scanning each name, his eyes soft, peaceful. "I think it's over there," he said, pointing toward the far corner. She always liked the view by the trees. Claire followed a few steps behind, her heart sinking deeper with every step. The wind carried the faint smell of flowers and cut grass, but everything around her felt heavy, muted. He stopped suddenly. She saw it in the way his shoulders stiffened. There it was, a white marble headstone, small and clean, with a simple engraving. Lily Ann Foster, 1986, 2023. She loved quietly. The paper wrapping around the sunflowers crinkled in his hand. He didn't speak, didn't move, just stood there, staring, like the ground had vanished under him. Claire wanted to reach for him, to explain, to hold him before the silence broke him. But his voice came first, hoarse, trembling. "She's gone?" Her lips parted, but no sound came. He turned toward her slowly, his eyes wide with disbelief. "You knew?" Her heart shattered. "Ethan, you knew?" His voice cracked now, raw with pain. "All this time? You let me believe she was alive?" Tears blurred her vision. "She made me promise. She didn't want you to suffer." He took a step back, shaking his head. "Suffer? Claire, do you even know what it feels like to walk into a grave thinking you're visiting a friend?" She reached for him, but he pulled away. "Ethan, she wanted peace. She didn't want you to see her like that." He looked at her, eyes filled with hurt and betrayal. Yet underneath, something softer still lingered. "And what about my peace, Claire? What about the right to say goodbye?" She wiped her tears, her voice barely holding. "She loved you, Ethan, even at the end. She said you deserved happiness. She said not to tell you." He closed his eyes, running a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. "She said that?" "Yes," Claire whispered. "She said to tell you she was okay, even if she wasn't." Ethan's face broke. Not with anger, but with something worse. Understanding. the kind that hurts deeper than blame. He knelt slowly, placing the sunflowers at the base of the stone. His fingers lingered there for a long time, tracing the carved letters. "You should have told me," he murmured, not to her, not even to Lily, but to the air itself. Claire stood behind him, tears falling freely now. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I thought I was protecting you." He looked up at her then, eyes red, voice soft. "You were, just not from the right thing. Love doesn't end when someone dies. It just changes what it means to stay." The sun dipped low, painting the sky gold and rose. Ethan and Claire sat side by side on the grass, silent. The world around them had gone still. Only the faint chirping of crickets filled the space. Finally he spoke. "I used to think love was about being honest all the time. But maybe it's about knowing when honesty hurts more than silence." Claire turned to him, her face wet, her hands trembling. "I didn't want to lose you." He looked at her gently. "You didn't, but I think I need time to find myself again." Her heart sank. "Ethan," he smiled sadly, "you gave me peace, Claire, even if it came wrapped in pain." She reached for his hand, but he stood up. "I'm going to walk for a bit," he said softly. "You can wait in the car." She nodded, unable to speak. He walked away slowly, his shadow stretching long in the fading light. Claire watched him go, the man she loved, carrying the weight of 2 goodbyes in one day. She turned back toward Lily's grave, kneeling beside it. "He knows now," she whispered, "and he'll forgive you too." The wind rustled through the trees, almost like an answer. Claire placed her hand on the cool marble, eyes closed. "Thank you for saving him when I couldn't." Then she stood, wiped her tears, and walked back toward the car. But just as she reached the gate, her phone buzzed. She frowned, pulling it from her pocket. A new message, no name, just a number she didn't recognize. She opened it. "Thank you for keeping your promise, Claire." Her hands went cold. The phone nearly slipped from her grasp. She stared at the screen, heart pounding so hard it hurt. "No," she whispered. "That's not possible." Another message appeared. "Tell him I'm okay." She froze, the world spinning, her breath caught between fear and disbelief. She looked around the quiet graveyard, her pulse thundering in her ears. The sun had dipped below the trees, shadows stretching long and thin. Somewhere far off, she thought she heard the faint sound of footsteps. Slow, deliberate, almost familiar. "Ethan?" she called softly. No answer. Another message buzzed. "Don't turn around." Her heart stopped. She dropped the phone, eyes wide, scanning the fading light around her. The screen lit up one last time as it hit the ground. Love never dies, Claire. It just finds new ways to be seen. She stood frozen, her breath shallow, her tears forgotten. The wind picked up again, brushing past her like a whisper. Soft, almost human. When Ethan finally returned minutes later, the phone lay on the grass, its screen cracked but still glowing faintly. He picked it up, confused, then looked around. "Claire?" he called. No answer. Just the rustle of the trees and the quiet echo of her name fading into the twilight.